One of the things I think we're challenged with as Christians, and really society, but I see this a lot in the Christian faith, is that we seem to get overly fixated on causes and conclusions. And so one of the stories that sort of represents that is in chapter 3, where we talk about the man born blind. And so I won't read that because I trust many have read that. But it's an interesting story because they asked Jesus, why was this man born blind? And Jesus says, neither. And he shifts the question. They said, was it his parents that sinned or was it him that sinned? And Jesus says, neither. It was so that the glory of God might be seen. And so Jesus has this knack, as most rabbis did in the first century, for asking questions. As a matter of fact, rabbis were trained to ask questions. That's how they taught their students. And so it was more about questions than it is about answers. So oftentimes when you read the Bible, you see Jesus, when someone asks him a question, sometimes it gets really frustrating because he almost never directly answers the question. He always asks another question, but that's how they were trained. And Jesus was a master at that. So in a way, he sort of shifts the conversation from the question of why can't this man see to how can God be seen? I think that's an important question as we talk about serving with and alongside and serving the disability community, is to shift the question from causes to how we can create community. And then the other thing that I think we get fixated on a lot as Christians is conclusion. And I think that's okay. But I think what you find in especially Western Christianity is we spend a lot of time on preaching about the cause. If you think about the grand scheme of our faith, which is sin. Sin is what caused everything, right? We get that. And then we jump right to the conclusion. The conclusion is, in Christ, we all go to heaven. And we have not, in my opinion, successfully mastered the ability to talk about the quality. So we want to talk about the causes for why life is the way it is, the conclusion for what we want life to be in the end. But we have a hard time managing the quality of life in between. And Jesus's ministry oftentimes points us to the reality that we shouldn't necessarily get fixated on the causes or the conclusions. And that's oftentimes because that's a big part of how we've been taught. We struggle with the stuff in between. And so what ends up happening is, and we translate that to disability or anything that we assume to be a part of suffering, we focus on why does this happen and how is this going to end, instead of in the middle. Jesus seems to always point us towards how do we create a quality of life for persons who this has impacted them, and how do we create community for persons who are impacted by some of these things. So Jesus doesn't spend a whole lot of time